Coffee Talk.
And we are going to be joined by David Schneider. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
David, you're the regional director for the Convention of States Action. A few weeks ago, one of your affiliates called and said, hey, could we get David on the air to talk about the Convention of States Action? Now, to make sure I got this correct, this is something that's kind of, I know Mark Levin's been pushing this. Am I correct?
That's correct. He wrote a book called The Liberty Amendments. Exactly what Convention of States is attempting to do.
All right, kind of what's happening in Kansas. You're the regional director. What can people do? Just kind of give us an idea what's going on in Kansas.
Well, I tell you, in Kansas, we've been very active over the last 2 years. Actually, I've been the state director in Kansas as well, Port in Kansas. We actually passed through the Fed State Committee in the House, and we're ready to go on the House floor when they reconvene in January. That's the current status on the House side. In the Senate, it's a concurrent resolution, so we're in the Senate as well. And we introduced in the Senate, also with broad support. We had 14 co-sponsors in the Senate. That's pretty impressive as well. But we've had a hearing in the Senate side, but we have not passed out of the Senate committee yet. So that's the current status of the legislation. As far as the organization is concerned, we're signing up new volunteers on a daily basis throughout the state of Kansas. I probably get about 20 to 30 new people that come in as volunteers on a daily basis here just in Kansas. Now I represent the entire region, and I'm telling you I got from everywhere from Texas up to North Dakota and then a couple other states like Minnesota and Wisconsin and Missouri in my region. And I'm telling you, this is a hotbed for Convention of States right here in the middle of the country. Just alone in Texas, I probably get 120 new volunteers on a daily basis in Texas. It's pretty crazy, the amount of groundswell that we're getting right now.
Now, on the Convention of States, how does this work? If Kansas, the Senate and the House pass this, does it then become one of the, how many states do they need, 34, 38? Or does it have to go before the people of Kansas to vote? Or is it already, it's a done deal if it's voted in Topeka?
Okay, the United States Constitution is very clear on the process, and it's upon the application of 2/3 of the legislatures of the several states. So, to answer your question, we would need the Kansas legislature to act through a resolution to call for an Article 5 Convention of States, and that application would stay in waiting until there is 34 states with the exact same application that is passed through the 34 states.
So, and at this point, it looks like it should go through our legislators or be passed in Kansas. If you're a betting man,
if we needed a simple majority in Kansas, we would have passed this thing already. Kansas is a unique situation in the Union, whereas our Kansas Constitution spells out Article 5 specifically, and any actions as far as amending the United States Constitution requires a 3/4 majority vote, or I'm sorry, a 2/3 majority vote in both houses. We're the only state in the Union that has that written into our Constitution.
So that might be a stretch to get that through, or it's going to be close.
Well, like I said, we would have passed this already with a simple majority.
But we don't have that, so we've got to get the 2/3. You're real close, or?
We're real close when we round things up this last year, and the reason we didn't vote is because of the budget battle that was going on up in Topeka. So that's why we kind of held off and held over until January to make a big push.
Yeah, now let me ask you a real tough question here, though. With I have to say the climate of some folks right now in the state, you're going to have about the biggest majority of conservative/Republicans in the Senate and the House that you're going to have probably in a long, long time. Is that a fair statement?
There is definitely, we have a supermajority
right now. This probably is the best chance to get this through if we're going to get it. I'm just saying how much longer we keep putting it off. We could have a complete landscape change, the next go around.
Yeah, that's very important that we do get it past this next calendar. And we are putting the organization in place to make sure that happens. Right now, we're ensuring that our legislators are hearing from us. And again, I'm on the radio today to tell your listeners this is very important to get involved with the Convention of States and to make sure your legislators understand that you want this to happen.
Now, we've had some callers call in to KINA Coffee Talk that are conservatives and really upset with the mauling of the Constitution and everything else, but they're not sure, they're convinced that this is the right way to go. And I mean, they're good patriots, but Randy, do you remember we had one caller was concerned that we might be actually giving up too many of our rights? Could you kind of address that concern? If this,
I certainly will, because I was actually in their camp up until about 2 years ago, when I woke up one day and realized that we were getting a rewrite of our Constitution on a daily basis by all three branches. You've got the Supreme Court that gets to decide what is constitutional, what isn't constitutional. They're rewriting it from the bench. We've got a president that is obviously not following the Constitution. It's not just this president either. If you go back a few, it's certainly the same situation. We've got a Congress that refuses to follow the Constitution. So right now we have a runaway federal government. And as I like to point out, people fear the process that the Founding Fathers put into the Constitution for the states to rein in the federal government. And I ask them why, and they're scared of a runaway process because they're unfamiliar with it. But what I like to also point out to them is this is not an unfamiliar thing for our country. There's actually been over 30 conventions that have happened. We haven't had any in the last 100 years. So we're unfamiliar with the process, but the rules and the procedures are very, very documented. We understand what will happen, what is allowed, what's not allowed. And it's not something to be feared. We should not fear the Constitution. Now, are we looking to rewrite the Constitution? Absolutely not. What we're trying to do is get it back into the original framework of the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers envisioned a federal government that would keep expanding its powers, and this is precisely why they put in Article 5, the second part of Article 5, for the states to be able to call this convention. George Mason himself stood up in the convention right before the end of the convention and insisted that the states have recourse in the federal government. And as a matter of fact, he at that point, the only recourse the only way to amend the Constitution is the way we had done it, that we've used thus far. And he said it'd be ludicrous to think that the federal government would propose amendments to the Constitution to limit their own powers. We must give the states this opportunity as well.
How many states do you think you have right now that are real close?
We've got a lot that are real close. We're in the 20s. We introduced actually in 38 states this calendar year, and we've passed through 4. We've got a lot that are carrying over. Missouri came within very, very close this last year. Nebraska is probably going to vote on this early in the year. Oklahoma was extremely close. Texas was within one vote. They had one senator that stood in the way.
And what do we need? What did you say? How many states? 38, did you say?
We need 34 states.
And boy, if there's ever a time to do it with how people are upset with, and you're absolutely right. You got the damn Supreme Court writing laws. You've got Obama breaking the laws, and Congress, they have no clue what's going on. I mean,
that's exactly right. And if you asked any one of them, they believe they're following the Constitution because the Supreme Court says it's okay. And we're not following the Constitution now. And as Mark Levin likes to put it, we live in a post-constitutional world. What we're trying to do is put that framework back around that federal government, get it back in the box that the Founding Fathers intended. We need some solid package of amendments, much like Mark Levin has proposed, as well as his liberty amendments would be a wonderful start to get the states talking about those type of reforms and get these things in place so we can get the federal government back into that box.
Now, when it comes to okay, you get the resolutions passed in the legislatures, do they have a expiration date that you need to get this all done, or then you have to go back to zero? How does that work?
The applications stay out there until 34 states apply. And then once 34 states apply, there's a convention that shall be called. The convention's held, and then it's up to the actual states to propose amendments in that convention. Going back to that fear factor again for the convention, the only power that the convention has is the same power that Congress has any given day, and it's spelled out in Article 5. The convention will have the power to propose amendments. That's all they can do is make proposals. So any proposals that come out of that particular convention would go back to the states for ratification, completely bypassing the federal government.
Now, in your most optimistic outlook, how soon do you think we could have the convention be called?
In my most optimistic, I would say in 2 years.
2 years. So we're looking at what, about 2017, 2018 time frame?
I would say 2017.
And if this convention is called, does it take place in Washington, or do the states that get together, the 34 states, make that determination?
The one power that Congress has in this whole process is they have to call the convention once the states make applications. So the initial meeting, Congress sets the time and the place. After they convene, the states can reconvene anywhere they so choose. I'm pushing for like Kansas City, somewhere around there. That would be wonderful.
Now, let me ask you this. Say the presidential election, we actually get a conservative Republican and we hang on to the House and the Senate, which that's a joke anyway. They don't do anything now. But do you think that you could lose a little bit of your steam in the sense of people think that things could turn around? I always kind of like to think of different scenarios of what could happen based upon a conservative Republican president.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'd love to say that one person can fix the mess that we've got going on in Washington, D.C., but the fact of the matter is it's not reality. Even if we get a solid constitutional conservative into the White House, he still has to face that Supreme Court. He still has to face the federal bureaucracy machine that is in Washington, D.C.
Probably have to face Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, who are worthless.
Yeah, the Washington elites that have amassed the power, essentially, and coalesce that power in D.C. We need a decentralization of that power, and the only way to get that done now is through a convention of states.
Well, again, if people want to become involved, are there some ways they can get a hold of you and learn more about this, David?
Without a doubt. The best place to go is conventionofstates.com. And it's full of information. You can sign a petition. Once you sign that petition, your legislator gets an email specifically from you, letting them know that you want them to be a sponsor or a supporter of Convention of States. Further, you can volunteer on that website, become part of our leadership team. We're looking for leaders all across the state. So the more you can be as involved as you want to be, you can just simply sign the petition, just simply off of that conventionofstates.com. We also do have Facebook page as well. It's COS Kansas, or COS Kansas, or KS Project is where it's located on Facebook. And we have over 10,000 likes just here in the state of Kansas on that page. All
right. Well, David, appreciate your time today and learning more. And please get a hold of me. And if you need some updates, we'll be glad to get you back on the air.
I appreciate you.
Okay, have yourself a good day now.
You as well. We'll see you.
Bye now. All right, it's David Schneider, the state director and regional director of the Convention of States Action.
Yeah, I'm going to have to kind of look at Article 5 just to get a little better understanding of what's going on here.
Yeah.
This is our founders made this tough
and I'm glad
to change the Constitution.
Yeah.
But what is sad is the president's breaking it, and he's absolutely right. The Supreme Court is now writing laws, and this Obamacare, how many different things have been changed in that just through the executive order?
More than 36 times.
Oh, I know. We could just go on and on and on, and then you have a Congress. I mean, when you have Sheila Jackson, by the way, she's not going to get in line to see the Pope. They're going to
kind of block her, huh?
Block her off or whatever. But when you hear some of these congressmen and women, and you hear Mitch McConnell talk and John Boehner talk, I used to be mesmerized by these people. And now that I hear them and now that I pay attention, I'm saying, you know what? Not only do they put their pants on the same way that I do, but sometimes I think they put them on backwards.